They divided us like furniture. My mom said, "I'll take Emmy." My dad said, "I'll take Noah." And my name? It just hung there, in the silence, like dust in a courtroom no one wanted to clean. I was 14. I wasn't the cute one. I wasn't the useful one. I was the one they'd figure out later. So the state figured it out for them. 16 years. That's how long it took for them to remember I existed. And when they finally came back, it wasn't with an apology. It wasn't with regret. It was with a loan document. They needed my signature. They needed my money. They needed me to fix the mess they made of their shiny new lives. But here's the thing they didn't know. The girl they left behind, the one who sat on a courtroom bench clutching half of a broken clay fox, she's gone. I'm not that girl anymore. I run an art fund now. I have a lawyer. I have a family that actually chose me. And tonight, right before the biggest gallery opening of my life, they walked into that room with contracts, threats, and fake smiles. They thought I'd crack. They thought I'd sign. They thought wrong. My name is Alina Price, and this is the story of how I turned every rejection, every scar, every single crack in my foundation into pure gold. This is the story of how I learned to say no. Not with anger, not with tears, but with power. Stick around, because what happens next, it's going to redefine everything you thought you knew about family, forgiveness, and revenge. Let's begin. It started on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were trash day, and I could hear the garbage truck rumbling down Ashbridge Lane while my parents sat in the kitchen below, calmly dismantling our family. I was upstairs, 14 years old, sitting on the warped hallway floor trying to sculpt a fox out of cheap gray clay. It wasn't working. The clay was too stiff, too cold. It kept slumping in my hands like it didn't want to exist. Kind of like me. Downstairs, their voices weren't even loud anymore. That's what scared me. The shouting had stopped an hour ago. Now it was just logistics. Emmy goes with me. My mother's voice, sharp, clinical. The same tone she used to tell EMTs which vein to hit. Emmy was 9. Emmy had blonde curls and did ballet. Emmy was easy. Fine. Noah stays with me. My father, rough, flat, tired. Noah was 16. He could swing a hammer. He was already half a man. He was useful. I held my breath. I waited. I waited for someone to say my name. Alina. The rain hit the window. The clay went cold in my hands. No one said it. I wasn't the easy one. I wasn't the useful one. I was the one they'd deal with later. And that's when I felt it. The exact moment my chest went hollow, like something inside me just gave up waiting. The fox slipped from my hands. It hit the floor with a wet thud and split clean down the middle, right down the spine. 2 perfect halves. I stared at it, and I thought, that's me. That's what just happened to me. When I finally went downstairs hours later, the house looked different. Every single photo on the mantle, the trip to the coast, Noah's baseball game, Emmy's school picture, had been turned face down. They were erasing us, erasing me. I picked up the 2 pieces of the broken fox and slid them into my hoodie pocket, the damp clay pressed cold against my ribs. It felt like evidence, proof that I had been here, that I had mattered, even if no one else remembered. A week later, I was sitting in a juvenile courtroom that smelled like floor wax and abandonment. My mother sat 3 rows ahead. My father sat 2 rows back. They had lawyers. I had a caseworker I'd met that morning.
The judge, a woman with hair pulled so tight it looked painful, didn't even look at me when she read the file. Case number 749B, the minor, Alina Price. The minor. Not a daughter, not a person, a problem. She finally looked up. Her voice was tired, but not unkind. Alina, is there anything you'd like to say? My throat closed. My mother stared at her shoes. My father checked his phone. I whispered the only thing I could. I just want to be where someone actually wants me. The judge nodded like I'd confirmed a shipping address. Thank you, Alina. She signed the paper. One stroke of a pen. Custody is granted to the state, effective immediately. That was it. I wasn't chosen. I wasn't fought for. I was filed away. And as I walked out of that courtroom, clutching one half of a broken clay fox, I made myself a promise. One day, I will be the one who gets to say no.
They put me in a place called Maple Row. It sounded like a board game. It felt like a lab experiment. Mrs. Holloway ran it like a military academy designed by Martha Stewart. Everything was spotless. Everything was scheduled. Everything was controlled. There was a giant whiteboard in the kitchen. Black electrical tape divided it into a grid. Wake up, 6 a.m. Showers, 7 minutes each. Breakfast, 6:40 a.m. Silent. Dinner, 6:15 p.m. Also silent, because Mr. Holloway liked to watch the news. This wasn't a home. It was a flow chart with beds. I shared an attic room with 2 other girls, Sarah, who bit her nails until they bled, and Chloe, who wet the bed and cried silently into her pillow every night. We had 3 metal cots, 3 dressers. I got the middle drawer. It was 4 inches deep. I learned to fold my life into squares. I rolled my socks into tight little balls. I flattened my shirts like origami. I was learning how to take up less space, how to be quieter, how to disappear. The most important rule at Maple Row wasn't on the whiteboard. It was this: after 9 p.m., you do not cry. Because if you woke them up, if you disturbed the pristine, controlled silence, you were the problem. We were 3 mice living in the walls of a laboratory. Our only job was to not disturb the experiment. School was worse. I was enrolled at Maple Row High as a temporary student. They gave me an ID card printed on bright yellow cardstock. Yellow, like a hazard sign. Lunch was a nightmare. I sat alone at the far end of a table by the windows, eating square pizza and wilting carrots, watching the world move on without me. I was invisible, a ghost in a borrowed sweatshirt. But my hands needed to work. I still had the broken fox in my pocket. It was hard now, useless, just a lump of gray regret. So I started collecting things. On my walk home from the bus stop, I found a family moving out. Their driveway was piled with trash, and in that trash, broken picture frames, shattered glass. I knelt down, pretending to tie my shoe, and slipped a piece of pale blue glass into my pocket. Then another, green, amber, mirror. I started hoarding them like treasure. At night, after the lights went out, I'd lay the pieces on a square of cardboard under my cot, and slowly, secretly, I started rebuilding the fox. Not with clay this time, with the things other people had thrown away. Then, one afternoon, I came back to the attic early. The door was open. Justin, the Holloway's son, 16 and smug, was in our room. He was holding my notebook, my private notebook, the one with my sketches, my plans, my fox. "You this is?" he asked. He wasn't asking permission, he was asserting dominance. I nodded, frozen. He flipped through it, stopped on the drawing of the fox. "Weird," he muttered. Then he smiled. It wasn't kind. "You are the quiet one, right?" He stepped closer. "You act like a ghost, you know that?" Then he tossed my notebook on my cot. It hit the metal frame, fell to the floor, pages bent, one ripped. He pushed past me and left. I stood there, shaking. I picked up the notebook. He'd crumpled the Fox page, on purpose, a little act of cruelty just because he could. 2 days later, Mrs. Holloway told me I was being moved. It's just not a good fit, Alina. Translation, you're the problem again. The system kept moving, and I kept breaking, but I still had my glass, and I was learning something important. Broken things can still cut.
The next place was different. The Dunnar house smelled like cinnamon and chaos. Mrs. Dunnar was round, warm, and constantly in motion. The kitchen was the heart of the house, and it always smelled like banana bread. My room was on the second floor. 6 bunk beds, 6 kids. The walls weren't sterile white. They were covered in art. Drawings, paintings, lopsided clay pots, handprints, an explosion of color and life. It wasn't a museum. It wasn't neat. It was real. And for the first time since the courtroom, I felt like I could breathe. 3 days after I arrived, the back door slammed open. A woman I didn't recognize walked in carrying a 5-gallon bucket. "Who wants to break stuff?" she shouted. The kids screamed with joy. Mrs. Dunnar didn't even look up from her pie crust. "Help yourself to coffee, Lainey." This was Lainey Monroe, potter, neighbor, chaos wizard. She taught mosaics every other Saturday at the Dunnar house, for free, just because. We gathered at the picnic table in the backyard. She dumped the bucket out. Shattered plates, broken tiles, sea glass, mirror shards, a glittering, dangerous pile of beautiful trash. "Rules are simple," she said, passing out scratched safety goggles. "We make beautiful things out of broken things, and you don't use a color you don't love." I sat. I watched. The other kids grabbed pieces like pirates diving for gold. But I just watched Lainey's hands, the way she turned a shard of blue coffee mug and said, "Oh, that's the perfect sky." Then I went upstairs. I came back down with my cardboard fox. It was ugly. The glue was patchy. The edges were sharp and dangerous. I held it out to her. I expected pity. I expected a polite smile. Instead, Lainey went silent. She took it, gently, like it was made of gold. She traced the shape with her finger. She saw the broken mirror tail. Then she looked up at me. Her eyes weren't sad. They were proud. "You take things people throw away, and you make them into things no one would dare throw away." She touched the sharp blue edge. "But we need to fix this. You're going to cut yourself to pieces, kid." She smiled. "Let's teach you how to handle the edges." The next Saturday, Lainey got permission to take me to the Iron Bridge Arts Collective. It was a massive, converted warehouse by the river. It smelled like wet clay, hot metal, and possibility. She led me to a machine in the corner. "The grinder," she said. She flipped the switch. The machine roared to life, high-pitched, violent, terrifying. She took my hand, steady, firm. She guided my hand, showing me how to press the glass against the spinning wheel. Water sprayed. The sharp edge didn't shatter. It turned smooth, safe, tamed. "Slow," she said. "Don't rush. If you rush, you get air bubbles. It'll crack later." She looked at me. "You have to push it into every crack. You have to fill the spaces." For the first time in my life, someone was teaching me how to fix what was broken. Not by hiding it, by honoring it. That night, I made a new fox. This one had ground edges, clean lines, charcoal grout. It was solid, it was real, and when my caseworker, Alana Reyes, came for my monthly check-in, I showed it to her. She held it, tested its weight. "This is good, Alina. This is structured." Then she pulled out a form. "There's a weekend program, North River Young Artists. I'm signing you up." She smiled. "You're an artist now." I looked at the fox in her hands. For the first time, I believed her.
I thought I understood mosaics. I thought I knew how to make broken things beautiful. But then Lainey showed me the gold. I was in the studio, frustrated. I'd been working on a new piece for hours, Fox number 7. It had a spine made of copper, a thin strip running down the center where two pieces of black mirror glass met. It was honest, it showed the break, but it looked ugly. The copper was too bright against the dull gray grout. The break looked like a scar, not a feature. "It's just a wound," I muttered, throwing my rag down. Lainey walked over. She stared at the piece for a long time. "You're treating it like a scar," she said. "You're trying to make it disappear." She tilted her head. "What if you illuminated it instead?" She walked to Theo's locked cabinet, the one with the expensive supplies, and came back with 2 small bottles and a glass jar. The jar was filled with fine, shimmering gold powder. "This," she said, "is 2-part epoxy resin. It cures clear as glass, but stronger than stone." She topped the jar. "And this is mica powder, pure gold pigment." She poured the resin onto a paper plate, stirred it slowly, then sprinkled in the gold. The clear, sticky resin swirled and transformed into liquid light. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. "There's an old Japanese art form called kintsugi," Lainey said softly. "When a beautiful piece of pottery breaks, they don't throw it away. They don't hide the cracks." She stirred the gold resin. "They repair it with lacquer mixed with gold. They celebrate the break. They believe the piece is more valuable, more beautiful, because it was broken." She looked at me. "The break becomes the most important part of the story." My hands were shaking. I took a wooden stick, dipped it into the golden resin. Slowly, carefully, I drizzled it into the channel I'd left for the copper spine. It settled, thick, bright, perfect. It didn't just fill the crack, it lit it up from the inside. When it cured, it was smooth, hard, unbreakable. The break was no longer the weakest part of the piece. It was the strongest and the most beautiful. That gold resin changed everything. It became my language, my signature, my truth. I spent that summer at Iron Bridge on a full scholarship. I made an entire series. The culmination was one large piece, a fox, barely recognizable, made of shattered cobalt blue glass, medicine bottle blue, deep and haunting, and every single crack, every line where one piece met another was filled with brilliant gold. I called it permission. Permission to be broken, permission to be whole, permission to be both at the same time. In late August, Permission was entered in the Iron County Fair. It won first prize. I stood next to it while the head judge, a thin, serious woman from a city gallery, read her notes aloud. The artist shows a remarkable maturity of vision. The piece is direct in its gaze, yet incredibly gentle in its execution. It confronts the viewer without aggression, asking us to see the beauty in the fracture. Direct, yet gentle. I held those words in my chest like a heartbeat. Later that week, my caseworker Alana came to the studio. She wasn't there for a check-in. She was holding a photo of Permission stapled to my file. "This," she said, tapping the photo, "is pretty undeniable, Alina." She put the clipboard down. "Lainey and Theo have filed the paperwork, the official petition for adoption." My heart stopped. "The hearing is scheduled, October 22nd. My heart stopped. October 22nd, the same night as the Iron Bridge Fall Showcase, the day my past would be erased, and the night my future would begin. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of drama. The hearing was in the afternoon. The showcase was that night. I told myself I could do both. I told myself it would be fine. But the universe wasn't done testing me yet. The first email came 3 days before the hearing. The name in my inbox made my blood run cold. Elaine Connolly. My mother. I clicked it. "Hi, Elena. I was just thinking of you. With Halloween coming up, I remembered that silly costume you made when you were little. I'm going to be in Harbor Falls visiting a friend around then. Maybe we could finally get coffee if you're free. I read it 10 times. If you're free. Like I was a client, a networking opportunity. I drafted a reply. Yes, I'd be okay with that. Let me know when. I didn't send it. I just stared at it. 2 days later, another email. On second thought, Alina, things are just too complicated with my new family. The kids are still adjusting. It's probably not a good time. Maybe after the new year? Click. The door that had opened just a crack slammed shut. The invitation was revoked. A week later, a text from my father. Hey, kiddo. Heard you're doing great in school. I'm so proud. Let's get together soon. Maybe after summer break? I didn't reply. Summer came and went. September brought another text. Things are crazy here. New job. Let's push it to after the holidays for sure. I put the phone down. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even hurt. I was done. Done waiting by the phone, done clearing my schedule for maybe and later, done chasing promises that evaporated the second I got close. I made a decision. I would not reply, I would not chase. I would be silent. My energy belonged to the studio, to the hearing, to the showcase. I would not give any more of it to ghosts. October 22nd arrived like a reckoning. The hearing was at 2 p.m. The courtroom was the same one I'd sat in 2 years earlier. Same smell, same benches. But this time, I wasn't alone. Lainey sat on my right, Theo on my left. We were a unit. The other side of the room, where my parents had sat, separated and silent, was empty. Their absence was louder than any testimony. The judge reviewed the papers. The biological parents have submitted voluntary signed surrenders of parental rights. They have waived their right to appear. He looked at the empty benches. Let the silence sit. Then he looked at me. Elena, for the record, what do you want? I thought of the first time I was in this room. The girl who whispered, I just want to be where someone actually wants me. That girl was asking for a place, an address, a label. I wasn't that girl anymore. I looked at the judge. My voice didn't shake. Your Honor, I want to be where people already chose me. It wasn't a plea. It was a statement of fact. The judge smiled, small, real. A very wise answer. He signed the paper. Congratulations, you are now legally a family. I expected to feel joy, relief, tears. Instead, I felt hollow. It was done, but my parents hadn't been there to fight, to object, to even say goodbye. They had just signed a form, like I was a package being rerouted. Lainey saw my face. She took my hand. We didn't sign a paper to forget what happened, Elena. We signed it to begin. She squeezed my hand. This isn't an ending. It's the starting line. We walked out into the cold October air, and for the first time, I wasn't leaving a courthouse. I was just going home. A week later, the local paper came out. Lainey was at the front desk when it was delivered. She yelled for me. Alina, you need to see this. It was the Harbor Falls Ledger, a small-town paper that ran a weekly human interest piece. This week, it was about the Iron Bridge Arts Collective and the upcoming fall showcase. And there, on the front page of the arts section, was a photograph, one of the black and white photos Gabe, Lainey's son, had taken. A close-up of a gold seam glowing against shattered blue glass. But it wasn't the picture that made my heart stop. It was the caption. Work by local artist Alina Price, whose series on repaired materials will be featured in the Iron Bridge Fall Showcase. Local artist Alina Price. Not foster youth, not former system kid, not the minor. Local artist. My name, my correct name, attached to my work, printed in black ink for the whole town to see. I was real. I was an artist. I belonged. The showcase itself was a blur of lights, people, and warmth. My work hung on the main wall, mosaics beside black and white photographs. The gold seams caught the light like veins of fire. People stood in front of them, really looking. A tall woman with striking silver hair studied permission for a long time. Then she walked over to me. "You're Alina Price." It wasn't a question. "I am. I'm Professor Eva Andel. I teach material science and sculpture at Pine Ridge College of Art." She handed me a card. "Your work with resin is extraordinary. You're not just filling cracks, you're building with them. You're changing the structural integrity." I just stared. "Are you a senior?" "A junior." "Good." She tapped my arm with her card. "That gives me time. Pine Ridge runs a competitive creative camp for rising seniors. It's by invitation." She smiled. "Sharp. Brilliant. I want you to come. I'm sending you the application. I expect to see it." And then she was gone. I looked at the card. Pine Ridge College of Art. A place I'd only seen in catalogs. A professor had just invited me. Life was moving fast. The ground was solid, and the future was pulling me forward. That's when my phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Alina? This is Noah." My brother. My heart hammered. I hadn't spoken to him since the day my father said, "Noah stays with me." I typed back, my thumb shaking. "This is Alina." The phone rang almost immediately. I walked out the back door into the cold night. "Alina." His voice was deeper. He was 18 now, not a boy anymore. "Noah, hi." There was a long, terrible silence. Music in the background. A party, maybe, or a dorm. "So, I heard you got adopted." "Yeah, I did." "That's good," he said quickly. "That's really good. I'm glad." Pause. Are they good people?" "They're the best people," I said. "Good." Another silence. "Listen, Al, Dad wants everything quiet, you know? He doesn't like looking back. And Mom, she's just gone, I guess." He took a breath. "But I miss you. I just wanted to say that. I miss you, and I'm sorry." The words hit me like a wave. "I miss you too, Noah." He saw a picture. My friend's mom posted something about an art show. She sent it to me. "Your stuff. The glass. It's awesome, Al." A tear slid down my cold cheek. "Thanks. I gotta go," he said. "But maybe I could see you sometime. Not now, but soon." "Okay," I whispered. "Soon." "Okay. Bye, Al." He hung up. The call lasted 4 minutes and 12 seconds. I went back inside and found a postcard from the showcase. It had permission on the front. I flipped it over and wrote his address. In the message space, I wrote 2 words. "I'm okay." The mail brought the past back. It always did. This time it was a thick envelope, expensive cardstock, embossed lettering. A wedding invitation. From my mother. Again. This was husband number 3. Or maybe 4, I'd lost count. The invitation was for a lavish event at a winery. But tucked inside wasn't a personal note. It was a small pre-printed card with a website address. A donation registry. "In lieu of gifts, Elaine and Robert ask that you consider a cash donation to help support the launching of our new family." I stared at it. She was fundraising, using her wedding to solicit cash, and she had sent this to me, not as a daughter, not even as a guest, as a donor. She had no idea what I did, no idea about my work, my gallery, my grant. She just saw a name on a list, a potential source of funds, a resource. I felt a cold, clear anger rise in my chest. I took the wedding invitation and the tacky donation card, and I fed them both into the paper shredder. I did not respond. Instead, I opened my laptop. I created a new page on the Shard Stories website. I uploaded the logo, a fox with a golden kintsugi seam down its back. I typed a new heading, announcing the first annual Shard Stories Scholarship Fund. This fund is established to provide a graduating high school senior from the North River foster care system with funds for art supplies, books, and a future of their own making. My mother wanted to fund her new family. I would fund my family. The kids still in the shadow, the ones waiting for the light to get in. 2 weeks later, the article came out. The Harbor Falls Ledger sent a photographer to the studio. The article wasn't in the arts section this time. It was on the front page. A portrait of me in my welding mask pushed up on my head, heavy canvas apron covered in grout dust. I was smiling. The headline, "From Foster Care to Founder, Alina Price Builds a New Story." There it was, in bold black ink. Alina Price. Not former youth, not even local artist. Founder. I bought 10 copies. Lainey and Theo framed one and hung it in the studio, right next to the "Pay What You Can" sign. The article was a signal, a bright, flashing light, and it didn't just attract the county, it attracted the ghosts. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was in the Iron Bridge studio, inventorying safety goggles for the new school program. The front bell chimed. I looked up, expecting a student. It was my mother. I hadn't seen her face, not in person, in 8 years. She was thinner than I remembered, hair a brassy blonde I didn't recognize. She was wearing a thin jacket and looked cold even inside. She was holding a stack of folded papers in one hand. Her knuckles were white. "Alina," she said, her voice strained. "Hello, Elaine," I said. My voice was steady, administrative. I put my clipboard down. "This is nice," she said, looking around the studio. Her eyes skimmed over the mosaics, the gold seams, the foxes that don't run. They were just things. "You're doing well." "I am," I said. "What can I do for you?" She stepped forward, her confidence faltering. She shoved the papers at me. "I need help." I didn't take them. "Help with what?" "It's bills," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Medical. My new husband, Robert, he got hurt at work. The insurance is a mess. They're going to come after the house." She unfolded the top paper. A hospital bill, the amount circled in red ink. It was staggering. "I need you to co-sign a loan." She looked at me. "Just a signature, Alina, for your mother." I looked at her. The woman who had sent me a donation request for her wedding. The woman who had signed a paper to give me away. I thought of Alana Leyes's card. "If you ever need someone to say no for you, call me." I realized I didn't need it. I could say no myself. "Please sit down, Elaine," I said. I pointed to the stool by the front desk. She sat. She looked wrong, out of place against the backdrop of my work. I went to the water cooler and got her a paper cup of water. She took it, her hand shaking slightly. I did not sit down. I stood across the counter from her. I was the proprietor. She was a visitor. "I am not going to co-sign a loan," I said. My voice was quiet, flat, final. Her face crumpled. "Alina, please, I'm your mother. You wouldn't even have all this place if it wasn't for me. I gave you life." "You did," I said, "and then you signed it away." I let that sit. "I am not financially responsible for you. Signing that paper would put this entire organization at risk. It would put the grants at risk. It would put the kids I serve at risk." I looked her in the eye. I will not do that. But what am I supposed to do? She whispered, the anger replaced by desperate, childish panic. You're in a medical debt crisis, I said, switching to my administrator voice. This isn't a family problem, it's a systems problem. I reached under the counter and pulled out a folder. What you need is a professional. I slid the folder toward her. If you give me the hospital file number and your contact information, I will pass your case to a medical social worker I know at the county hospital. They specialize in negotiating these bills. They can help you set up a payment plan or apply for relief. She stared at me, bewildered. I was offering her a solution, a real one. But it wasn't the solution she wanted. She wanted my money, my name, the name I had given value. She wrote down the number, her handwriting spiky and angry. I'll make the call this afternoon, I said. They will contact you. She stood up, leaving the paper cup of water untouched. You've changed, she said, her voice turning cold. You've become cold. I've become a professional, I said. I hope the social worker can help you, Elaine. She left. The bell chimed. She was gone. I took her paper cup and dropped it in the recycling bin. I thought that was it. I thought the wall had held. I was wrong. That was just the first probe. The second came 2 weeks later. I was welding in the studio at Pine Ridge when my phone rang, a Harbor Falls area code. Alina Price? Alina, kiddo, it's your dad. His voice was a boom of false cheer. Dad, hi, I'm in the middle of working. This'll just take a second. Listen, I saw that article about you in the paper, the county thing. Wow, you're really doing it, kid. A real businesswoman. I'm busy, Dad. What do you need? Right to the point. I love it. He laughed. Okay, so you know I'm in woodworking. My new wife, Sarah, she's got a great eye for design. We're starting a little business, high-end, custom-built furniture. I could feel the shape of it coming. My hand tightened on the cold welding torch. So here's the pitch. We partner up, my company, your nonprofit. We provide all the wood supplies for your workshops, tables, frames, you name it. We build a curriculum around it. He paused. We just need a little seed money to scale up production. The grant money you have, it would just flow through you to us. It's a partnership. Everybody wins. He said it like it was obvious. We'll be a real family business. A family business. I slowly, deliberately put the torch down. I pulled off my gloves. Dad, I said, did you read the article? Of course I did. That's why I'm calling. Proud of you, kiddo. Then you know Shard Stories is a non-profit, funded by the Stonebridge Trust and Iron County. Yeah, that's the one. Which means, I continued, my voice as cold as steel, that we are bound by state and federal laws regarding conflict of interest. Silence. I let that sit. I am not financially responsible for you. Signing that paper would put this entire organization at risk. It would put the grants at risk. It would put the kids I serve at risk. I looked her in the eye. I will not do that. But what am I supposed to do? He whispered. The anger replaced by desperate, childish panic. You're in a medical debt crisis, I said, switching to my administrator voice. This isn't a family problem, it's a systems problem. I reached under the counter and pulled out a folder. What you need is a professional. I slid the folder toward her. If you give me the hospital file number and your contact information, I will pass your case to a medical social worker I know at the county hospital. They specialize in negotiating these bills. They can help you set up a payment plan or apply for relief. She stared at me, bewildered. I was offering her a solution, a real one. But it wasn't the solution she wanted. She wanted my money, my name, the name I had given value. She wrote down the number, her handwriting spiky and angry. I'll make the call this afternoon, I said. They will contact you. She stood up,
leaving the paper cup of water untouched. "You've changed," she said, her voice turning cold. "You've become cold." "I've become a professional," I said. "I hope the social worker can help you, Elaine." She left. The bell chimed. She was gone. I took her paper cup and dropped it in the recycling bin. I thought that was it. I thought the wall had held. I was wrong. That was just the first probe.
A week later, Lainey forwarded me an email. The subject line, "Please help Alina." It was a link to a GoFundMe campaign. I clicked it. My own face stared back at me, the photo from the Ledger article, the headline in big, bold letters, "Save Alina's studio from bankruptcy." My blood went cold. The text was a masterpiece of fabricated drama, written by Robert Connolly, my mother's new husband. "Our daughter, Alina Price, is a courageous artist who has overcome a tragic childhood. She has poured her heart and soul into a community art studio, but she is in desperate trouble. Predatory county contracts and massive overhead have pushed her to the brink of bankruptcy. She is too proud to ask for help, so we, her family, are asking for her. Please help us save this vital community resource before she loses everything." It was a lie, a toxic, dangerous, public lie. They were using my name, my story, my photo to commit fraud. They weren't just asking for money, they were trying to destroy my reputation with the very partners I had just secured. I didn't call Alana. I called Mara Keegan, a lawyer in Riverton who did pro bono work for artists. I sent her the link. 5 minutes later, she called. "Alina," she said. Her voice was not calm. It was the voice of a shark that smells blood. "This is libel. This is fraudulent misrepresentation. This is copyright infringement for using the Ledger's photo without permission." She laughed. It wasn't a nice laugh. "They are so stupid." "What do we do?" "You do nothing," she said. "I do everything." Within 1 hour, Mara had sent a cease and desist letter citing 3 different federal statutes. Within 2 hours, she had filed a formal fraud and copyright report with GoFundMe's legal department. She attached the cease and desist and a copy of my grant agreement with Iron County as proof of solvency. It took the platform less than 24 hours. The page was shut down. The money, what little had been raised, was frozen and returned to donors. It was gone. But the damage was done. The county administrator, Ms. Diaz, called the next morning. Her voice was sharp, official. "Alina, we have a problem. My office has received 3 separate inquiries regarding a bankrupt program we are funding." "Miss Diaz, it was a fraudulent campaign started by a disgruntled relative. It's been handled." "I don't care if it was handled," she snapped. "I care about compliance." She took a breath. "I need a full review of your organization's financials, your bylaws, and your grant spending reports for the last 6 months. Pause. I need it in 48 hours, or we are freezing the school contract." The line clicked. I didn't panic. I didn't cry. I opened my laptop. I opened my files. I had every receipt, every bylaw, every signature. I had my shield. I worked for 36 hours straight. I created a full professional dossier. I included grant reports, bank statements showing a healthy balance, the bylaws I had written with Article 4, Section 2 highlighted in yellow, a copy of Mara's cease and desist letter, and confirmation from GoFundMe that the campaign was fraudulent. I was transparent. I gave them everything. I emailed the PDF, all 112 pages, to Miss Diaz's office, with 6 hours to spare. I slept for a day. When I woke up, there was an email from her. It contained 3 words: "Compliance confirmed. Proceed." I had won. I had held the wall. That evening, I sat in the Iron Bridge studio, just looking at the light fade.
My phone buzzed. A text from Elaine. "You owe me this. You owe me." I looked at the message. Then I looked up. On my workbench, under the single desk lamp, was the small framed piece, the back half of the original clay fox, its broken edge sealed in a perfect, shining line of gold. I looked at the message again, and I whispered to the empty, quiet room, "I owe nothing."
So here's where the story ends. Or maybe where it finally begins. My parents came back one last time. They showed up at my senior thesis gallery opening with contracts, threats, and fake smiles. They thought I'd crack. They thought I'd sign. They thought I still needed them. But I didn't. I stood in that cold, sterile conference room and I said no. Not with anger, not with tears, with power. I took the broken pieces they left behind, the girl no one wanted, the one they filed away like paperwork, and I turned her into something they could never touch. I turned rejection into art. I turned scars into gold. I turned no into a foundation. Today, Shard Stories is thriving. We're in 4 public high schools, we've awarded 6 scholarships, we've taught over 200 kids how to grind sharp edges and fill the cracks with light. And my parents? They're gone. Not because I cut them off with cruelty, but because I built a life so solid, so legally protected, so full of people who actually chose me, that there was simply no room left for ghosts. If you've made it this far, thank you. Thank you for listening to my story. If you're out there and you're still waiting for someone to choose you, stop waiting. Choose yourself. Build your own family. Set your own boundaries. Fill your own cracks with gold. And remember, the break is not the end of the story. It's where the light gets in. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and tell me in the comments what's the hardest no you've ever had to say. I'll see you in the next story. My name is Alina Price, and I am no longer the leftover.